All right, faithful, something pretty interesting is happening right now, and this might be one of those situations that looks small at first, but could end up meaning a whole lot when the season gets rolling. There's been plenty to worry about lately, especially with guys getting banged up. But finally, we've got some stuff happening that should get Niners fans excited. And trust me, there's one development in particular that you're gonna want to keep an eye on. Because if this continues, things could get really fun. If you're feeling good about where this team is headed, hit that like button right now. And I want to see the real faithful in the comments. Drop a bang bang Niner gang if you're ready for football to be back. Something very interesting is beginning to take shape in Santa Clara, and it could end up being far more important to the San Francisco 49ers than another routine training camp storyline. While injuries have dominated much of the conversation and forced the team to shuffle pieces across the roster, Brock Purdy is quietly putting together the kind of camp that deserves everyone's attention. And the most important part isn't simply that he's completing passes or making highlight reel throws. It's what he apparently isn't doing anymore that could change the complexion of this offense. But before getting to Purdy, there is an immediate roster move to address, because San Francisco's growing problems along the offensive line have forced the team to bring in another body. The 49ers have signed offensive lineman Keon Smith and released wide receiver Colton Dowell. Smith entered the NFL as an undrafted free agent in 2021 after playing at Fayetteville State. He initially signed with the Atlanta Falcons and later spent time with the Miami Dolphins, moving between the active roster and practice squad during his NFL career. There is one detail about Smith's background that makes this addition particularly interesting for San Francisco. His experience in Miami gave him exposure to Mike McDaniel's offense, which shares principles with Kyle Shanahan's system. That doesn't guarantee Smith a roster spot, but when a player arrives in the middle of training camp, any degree of familiarity with what the coaching staff wants can matter. Physically, Smith also brings intriguing size. He measured around 6'5" and 315 pounds coming out of college. With 34 1/2-inch arms, he has played tackle at the NFL level and has appeared in 23 career games, including 2 starts with Miami. And right now, opportunity may be waiting for him. San Francisco has been dealing with injuries across the offensive line. Dominic Puni suffered a high ankle sprain during the first training camp practice and is expected to miss multiple weeks. Offensive lineman Carter Warren has also missed practice while dealing with a concussion, while Brett Toth has been unavailable as well. That matters because Toth offers the ability to play both center and guard, and the 49ers suddenly need healthy bodies capable of giving them flexibility up front. Smith, therefore, isn't arriving simply as another anonymous camp signing. He's walking into a situation where snaps are available and where the competition for backup jobs could change quickly. Maybe he earns one of those jobs. Maybe his path ultimately leads to the practice squad, something he has experience with from his time in Miami. Either way, the injuries have created an opportunity. And injuries have unfortunately become one of the defining themes of this training camp. There was finally some encouraging news, though. After a practice in which a large number of players on San Francisco's roster were unavailable, several important players began working their way back. Rookie wide receiver DeCorey Stribling was back in uniform after dealing with a hamstring issue. He wasn't participating fully in team drills, but seeing him back on the field was still meaningful, considering the strong camp he had been putting together before the injury. Dre Greenlaw was also back on the practice field after dealing with soreness, although the 49ers continued to manage his workload carefully. Osa Odigizua was another player returning to work, while edge defender Sam Okwuegbunam was able to come back after hurting his ankle the previous day. For a roster that has spent so much of camp watching players disappear from drills, Even incremental progress matters. There is, however, one situation that deserves continued attention. Nick Bosa has missed consecutive practices because of soreness. The key question is what kind of soreness we're talking about. If this is simply the normal result of ramping up football activity, the 49ers can afford to be patient. Training camp is not the time to push an elite defensive player unnecessarily. But Bosa is returning from the torn ACL he suffered in Week 3 last season, so anything involving soreness naturally becomes something worth monitoring. That doesn't mean there is evidence of another serious problem. There isn't enough information in what has been reported here to make that conclusion. But it is absolutely something the 49ers will want to watch closely. Bosa's importance to this defense hardly needs an explanation. The numbers discussed during camp illustrate the type of disruption he has produced. Compared with Max Crosby over the previous 4 years, Bosa played 11 fewer games yet was credited with only 4-1-2 fewer sacks, while producing more quarterback hits and 17 more pressures, approaching 300 total pressures during that span. That's the kind of impact San Francisco cannot easily replace. And with the defensive front already dealing with availability issues, keeping Bosa healthy is much more important than having him participate in every August practice. But here's where this training camp story takes a completely different turn. Because while San Francisco has been trying to survive all of those missing bodies, Brock Purdy has been doing something that might be the most encouraging development of camp. Purdy is taking care of the football. That sounds simple until you understand why it matters so much. Turnovers have been one of the central criticisms attached to Purdy when his play has become more aggressive. He has always possessed the willingness to attempt difficult throws, extend plays, and search for something bigger when a play begins to break down. That mentality can produce spectacular moments, but it can also become dangerous when a quarterback starts trying to manufacture something that isn't there. Training camp has historically been a place where Purdy has tested those boundaries. Quarterbacks often use these practices to discover which throws they can make against NFL coverage. Purdy has thrown interceptions in previous camps while experimenting with those windows. This time, the early numbers look very different. Through roughly 2 weeks and 8 practices, Purdy had thrown only 1 interception during team drills, according to the information presented from camp. 1. And what makes that even more impressive is the situation around him. Purdy hasn't been operating with a perfectly healthy offense. The offensive line has been shuffled because of injuries. Skill position players have moved in and out of the lineup. George Kittle hasn't been available to him during this stretch, and the running back depth behind Christian McCaffrey has also been affected by absences involving Jordan James and Ke'Shawn Vaughn. That has forced Purdy to build chemistry with players much further down the depth chart. And instead of the offense collapsing around him, Purdy has continued making plays. He's connected with Will Pauling, an undrafted receiver out of Notre Dame. He's worked with Junior Bergen, a player whose value has been closely associated with special teams and the return game. Then came the throws that should really make 49ers fans pay attention. Purdy unleashed 2 deep touchdown passes that traveled more than 70 yards, connecting with receivers who aren't exactly entering camp with reputations as unstoppable NFL deep threats. One went to KhaDarel Hodge, a recent addition to the roster. Another went to Malik Turner, a player fighting for his place on the team. Think about what that combination tells us. Purdy isn't simply surviving without all of his preferred weapons. He's pushing the football vertically. He's creating explosive plays. And at the same time, he's apparently avoiding the reckless mistakes that have sometimes accompanied his aggressive style. That balance is exactly what San Francisco needs from him. We've already seen what Purdy can look like when everything is clicking in Kyle Shanahan's offense. His first 2 NFL seasons produced extraordinary efficiency. He demonstrated that he could execute Shanahan's system, process quickly, distribute the football to playmakers, and still create outside the structure of the offense when necessary. But the next stage of his development isn't about proving he belongs. It's about becoming more consistent when circumstances around him aren't perfect. That's why what is happening in this camp could matter. Anybody can look comfortable when the offensive line is intact and every star skill player is available. Training camp becomes much more revealing when those safety nets disappear. Right now, Purdy is being asked to operate without several important pieces. And instead of forcing throws because those pieces aren't there, he appears to be showing greater control while still attacking the defense. If that carries into the regular season, we're talking about something much bigger than a good August. We're talking about the possibility of a more mature version of Brock Purdy. And there is another layer to this story, because limiting interceptions isn't the only thing standing out about what Purdy has been doing. Those deep touchdown throws raise a fascinating question about how aggressive this 49ers offense could become if Purdy maintains this level of ball security while continuing to attack defenses vertically. That's where this conversation gets really interesting. Before we get into that next part, I want to hear directly from 49ers fans. What has impressed you more about Brock Purdy's camp so far? The fact that he has reportedly thrown only one interception in team drills, or the explosive deep throws he's producing despite working without several key offensive pieces? Drop your answer in the comments, because this could become one of the biggest storylines of the entire 49ers season.